Hi, it's Steph, and we're at the Home Depot, and they have a bunch of new seasonal annuals as well as perennials and shrubs. So let's go ahead and take a look at the September inventory at the Home Depot. This time of year, I'm all about the sedums, and this is a beautiful variety. It is just starting to open up with these little star-shaped blooms in light shades of pink, and the pollinators love it. This sedum is the Matrona, and what's characteristic of this sedum is that it's nice and tall and upright and dark stems. Look how pretty that is. So here are the specs on sedum stonecrop Matrona. It will bloom in late summer and fall. It likes full sun, and it prefers a well-draining soil, getting 18 to 24 inches in height and needs 15 to 18-inch spacing. And sedums are very hardy. This one here is hardy to zone 3 or down to negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, to grow sedum best, you absolutely need a very well-draining soil and in full sun. Those are the conditions that they prefer. I find that they are mostly deer and bunny resistant, although sometimes the bunnies will munch on sedum. So just something to keep an eye on, but a very low fuss plant to take care of. And if you're planting and one of these stems happens to break off, just shove it in the soil. Sedum roots so easily, so you can just start a new plant with the piece that you accidentally broke off. So that is always a lot of fun. And here is another variety of sedum, and this one here is called Autumn Fire, and also gets these really large heads of pink blooms. And this one here is still only in bud form, so it's going to color up and turn pink pretty soon. Again, it's going to want a well-draining soil in full sun, and it gets to be 24 to 30 inches in height and needs 18 to 24 inch spacing. Blooms midsummer through mid-fall. And these are in the Home Depot containers for $9.98. And right beside it is another fall bloomer, and this is Caryopteris. This is a pollinator magnet, and it gets these really pretty, kind of almost round clusters of blooms. I've seen them come in pink and white, and this one is the traditional kind of purple blue color. And these are kind of a perennial that will be woody at the bottom, so sort of like a shrub. And this is also known as bluebeard, Caryopteris. This variety is called Pavilion, and it gets to be 14 to 18 inches in height and needs 14 to 18 inch spacing, which this is actually pretty compact for a bluebeard or Caryopteris. They're generally around the 36 inch tall and wide range. It says to water when dry, so they like to lean a little bit on the dry side, and they're hardy down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit, blooming early summer through fall. And some really pretty pink asters. Now this is another really great late season bloomer, and they're perennial, so you can plant them in your containers if you want to now in the fall, and then you can plant them out in your landscape and enjoy them year after year. Now asters also prefer a soil that drains well and full sun, but this is loaded with buds, and then it will bloom for you beautifully this season. So this does not give me the type of aster that it is, but they get to be 12 to 18 inches in height, need 18 to 24 inch spacing, water when dry, and hardy down to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit, midsummer through fall bloomer. And I recently just picked up the purple variety, which I'm going to show you next, which is really beautiful as well. They look like tiny little, kind of a frilly daisy with a yellow center. And here is the beautiful light purple variety with the yellow center. And this is the one that I picked up just about 2 weeks ago now. And I did go ahead and plant it in a container, and it looks gorgeous. And very easy to clean these up. You can see that those are the spent blooms. You would just go ahead and pinch them right off to clean up your plant and to keep it blooming for the rest of the season. So very simple. I absolutely love it. I think it's such a sweet looking flower. So again, it's just listed as an aster, water when dry, 12 to 18 height and 18 to 24 inch spacing, hardy down to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. And another really beautiful late summer bloomer that is new to me this year, and I actually picked up 2 of them on my last trip here to the Home Depot just a couple of weeks ago, and this is Calamenta. Now Calamenta is related to the mint family as well as Nepeta and catmint. They're all part of the mint family. But Nepeta or catmint will bloom earlier in the season in spring at some point through the summer, and then it'll sort of peter out. And then this one, Calamenta, shows up at the end of the season, heading into fall, looking absolutely gorgeous. Now this is a variety I've had on my wish list for a little while. It is the Montrose White, and I wanted to give this one a try, so I went ahead and bought 2 of them, and it has these really pretty kind of ethereal looking white dainty blooms, and the bees love this plant. I have it waiting to be planted out in my yard, and the bees are all over this all day long. So really pretty, and I think it makes a really nice contrast with some darker foliage plants. So you can plant it with a heuchera that has dark foliage that maybe can take a little bit more sun, or it even looks really beautiful right here paired with this Matrona sedum. So the specs on this one, the Montrose White Calaminta, it gets to be, it blooms in summer through fall, late summer through fall. It likes full sun, and it prefers a well-draining soil and gets to be 15 to 18 inches in height and needs 12-inch spacing. And they also happen to have some of the pink Caryopteris in stock. So that is what the pink looks like. Very pretty. It's also called Pavilion, so there isn't any difference. They have the Pavilion Blue and the Pavilion Pink. Same specs, where it gets to be 14 to 18 inches in height and in width. And some Coreopsis or tick seed, which also looks really pretty with the purple asters. Yellow and purple are opposite on the color wheel, so they make a really pretty complementary color in the garden. Now this one here is called the Coreopsis Lilbang Firewheel. They are listed as deer resistant. These are a powerhouse when it comes to blooms. They always have a ton of buds on them, and I find that they bloom for a really long time. I have a variety called Moonshine in my garden. It's a light buttery yellow, and it's great. So this one here gets to be 15 to 18 inches in height and 18 to 24 inches in width, and it is hardy down to -20 degrees Fahrenheit. Early summer through fall is when it blooms. Now I find these pretty drought tolerant. I hardly ever water mine, and it does wonderfully. So this is a great plant. Also, nothing touches it. I don't find that the deer or rabbit bother it at all. So Coreopsis, really great plant for very long season interest. All of these #1 perennials here are $9.98. So whether you're getting the asters, the Caryopteris, or the Coreopsis, or even a sedum, they're all the same price. They still have some really beautiful coneflowers. Now, coneflowers are one of my favorite perennials in my garden. They start blooming for me here in my zone 6 in July, and then they have a really long season of interest. Right now in September, they're still looking pretty good. And if they start to look a little bit like they need to be cleaned up, you can go ahead and just deadhead those spent blooms. And then at the end of the season, you can even leave up some of these cones so that they provide winter interest, and the yellow finches really love to peck at these seed heads for a snack. So I think they're a really beautiful perennial to add to your garden. Now this one here is a pretty shade of red. So they come in several colors, several varieties. The key thing to know about growing coneflowers is that they like a very well draining soil in full sun. Otherwise, they can succumb to something called crown root rot, in which you might lose your plant. So definitely don't plant them in a spot that is too moist, but they are a beautiful perennial for your garden. They are deer resistant, I find, but sometimes the lower blooms can get chomped off by bunnies. So just something to be aware of. Those purple ones there are listed as the Echinacea purpurea, which is the native variety of coneflower. And then they have some of these colorful ones that come in shades of gold and red and orange, sometimes even pink mixed in, or ivory. And this is the Cheyenne Spirit, in which you will get multiple colors in just one plant, which is really fun. And here's one that I added to my garden last year. This is Chalone, also known as turtle head, because the blooms look like little turtles' heads. Now this likes part sun, part shade, and a pretty moist soil. I actually have it in a bed that stays pretty moist, and it's been really happy there. The variety is called Hot Lips. You can see it's a perennial for part sun, attracts butterflies, and outstanding color. I really love any plant that gives me blooms this late in the season. We're in September now, and mine is just about bursting into bloom. And it gets to be 24 to 36 inches in height and 18 to 24 inch spacing, hardy down to -40 degrees Fahrenheit. And this one still looks really good. This is in a large #3 container for $19.98. Some first editions Weigela. So if you want some blooms next season, but better yet to add some dark foliage to your perennial beds, this is a great option. Has really pretty dark leaves, which makes a really sharp contrast with all of the green in the landscape. And this is a first edition shrub called Shining Sensation Weigela. And let's see the size on this one. Some of them can get pretty large. This looks like it's a medium-sized shrub, 5 to 6 feet in height and 3 to 4 feet in width. It likes full sun, and it is hardy in zones 4 through 8. Really pretty. And these are a number 3 container for $34.98. I have a proven winners variety called Wine and Roses, about the same size, also has this dark foliage and these hot pink bell-shaped flowers at some point in the beginning of summer. So really pretty. There are lots of arborvitae that you can plant this fall for your living fences or privacy hedges. They are great options. There are 2 varieties. There is the emerald green arborvitae as well as the green giant. Now the green giant gets pretty giant and it's also more deer resistant, has more of a loose kind of open habit, where the emerald green stays more compact, columnar shaped, and it is not as deer resistant. I do have a comparison video on my channel that I can link below for you to check out, but they have a couple of different sizes here. It looks like 3-gallon size on the green giant arborvitae is $34.98. Actually, look at that. They're marked down. So they were $34.98 and they are now $19.88, which is a great price. And even though you would get this 3-gallon, it'll make it easier to plant, but these grow fast. So don't be afraid to plant a smaller one, because my neighbors planted maybe some 4 or 5 footers a few years ago and they have more than tripled in size in just about maybe 4 or 5 years. So they grow pretty quickly. Now these grow, the green giants, a lot faster than the emerald green. So that is another thing to take into consideration. And here are the emerald green arborvitae. So they have quite a few of them in stock, and these are also the 3-gallon size, and they are $29.98. I don't see a markdown price on these yet, but if you hold off long enough, they might. But if you need a large quantity of them, this is the time to grab them while they still have plenty to choose from. A few more really beautiful evergreens, and this here is the Cripsey, which is a Hinoki cypress. Now I love Hinoki cypress. I think they're beautiful. They have such a gorgeous, like, arching, graceful habit. This variety likes full sun. Anytime in general that you see a golden shrub like this or one that is blue, they generally need more sun to have that beautiful coloring. This one says that it gets 10 to 15 feet in height. It is low maintenance, a garden showpiece, and it needs 5 to 10 foot spacing, hardy down to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. And I'll pull this out so you can kind of get a feel for the shape of it. Look at that. So it grows all kind of wild, and I think it looks really pretty. And they have quite a few here. There is also another gold type of arborvitae here. This is the golden emerald arborvitae Jantar. Now I will tell you that the golden ones, are also not deer resistant when it comes to the emerald green varieties, because I have seen these pretty mowed down by deer. I live in the country, so a lot of times you'll see these as being misshapen trees. They will get eaten up to the point where the deer can eat them, and then they'll have a little bit left on top. So something to be aware of, but that is also a really pretty color. If you have a fenced-in yard or garden, you can certainly add some of those without worrying about it too much. But if you're open to the wildlife like I am, something to think about. And if you like round or globe-shaped type shrubs, evergreens, for interest in the landscape, this is another really pretty one that keeps this globe shape without any pruning, unlike the boxwoods that you would need to trim to keep that shape. This is another one that is not deer resistant, however. This is the arborvitae danica. It likes full sun. You can see that it grows in that sphere or round shape, 18 to 24 inches in diameter, and 18 to 24 inch spacing, hardy down to negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And these are in a number 3 container for $29.98. And right behind them, they have something that I recently picked up for my garden as well. It is a sky pencil holly. I really like the upright vertical structure of this plant. I feel like it looks really nice in like a formal garden or even in a contemporary modern type garden. So I recently picked up 2 to add to one of my beds. And these stay pretty compact. They only get to be about 6 to 8 feet in height on average, and about 3 to 4 feet in diameter after about 10 years. So really great kind of compact, upright, evergreen that you can use to punctuate on the sides of a bed or even on the sides of like a porch. So this one is deer resistant, provides winter interest. It likes full sun, and it needs 36 to 48 inch spacing, hardy down to negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit. The sky pencil holly. And these here are $39.98 for a number 3 container. And if you're thinking of adding some ground cover so that over time you can mulch less, here is an option for a living mulch. This is an evergreen ground cover. And what's great about evergreens is that unlike perennials, which will die back and go dormant for the winter, evergreens look this way all year round. So even when you don't have your perennials to look at, you will still have something beautiful out in the garden in the winter. So this one here is the blue rug juniper Wiltoni. It likes full sun in order to get this pretty kind of blue-green coloring. It only gets to be 6 inches in height because the goal of this plant is to spread horizontally and create a ground cover. And you can see how that looks in the photo there. It is deer resistant and drought tolerant. I can vouch for that because I actually have some of this planted on a hillside area of my garden and the deer do not touch it. And it's filling in beautifully. 4 to 6 feet in spacing and hardy down to negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And these here are $14.98 and this is a 3.78 liter container. Some more arborvitae, and these are the really large ones, and they have both the green giant there on the left and the emerald green here on the right. And this gives you a good idea of the difference in the texture of them. And a couple more cool low-growing evergreens that can also serve as a ground cover over time is this creeping juniper all gold. I actually also added a couple of these to my garden and I really love them. Look at this pretty gold color. And then it kind of just sprawls out gorgeous. So it likes full sun, it is deer resistant, gets to be up to 12 inches in height, and it needs 4 to 5 foot spacing, hardy down to negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit. And these are only like $26, I believe. Let's take a look. $26.98 on this juniper all gold. And check this out. This is a beautiful lilac. Now, lilacs typically bloom in the spring. This is the Miss Kim variety. But not only are lilacs great for their fragrance and their spring blooms, they also get gorgeous fall color. Look at this. So this Miss Kim lilac is starting to get its beautiful burgundy foliage now that the temperatures are starting to cool off and we're September. So this is their fall color. So if you're looking to add a lilac for some beautiful spring blooms and that wonderful fragrance, just know that in the fall, you'll also get some more interest out of this shrub. So it likes full sun, it is deer resistant and fragrant, gets to be 3 to 5 feet in height and needs 5 foot spacing, hardy down to negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And these containers here are a number 3 for $29.98. And some skip laurels. I actually drive by a house on the way to the library in my town who has a hedge of these and they look really pretty. And I know that they are them because they have these really pretty kind of strappy, glossy leaves and just the structure of them. But they look like they also bloom with these white kind of almost look like a bottle brush type bloom. And it likes part sun. It says it's a garden showpiece, gets to be 5 to 6 feet in height and needs 6 foot spacing. And it is hardy down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Very pretty foliage. And these evergreens here in a number 3 container are $34.98. The blooms look like they could be very similar to, say, an Itea or a sweet spire. This is another reason I love to visit garden centers throughout the whole season, so that when you go see what they have in stock at the garden center, by adding those plants to your garden, you will have a very long season of interest. So here's another late season bloomer. This is called a false sunflower and the variety is Summer Eclipse. And look how gorgeous this is. It has a dark foliage and let's see how large this variety gets. It blooms summer through beginning of fall. So end of summer, beginning of fall. It likes full sun and it grows 24 to 30 inches in height and it is hardy down to zone 4 or negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. This is really pretty. If you have a hot colored garden with shades of oranges and yellows and reds, this would look really beautiful. And this even pairs really nicely with purple plants like we just saw with that coreopsis that was outside. It looks like some petals will have a bit of a double bloom or double petal situation. And here's the foliage looking really healthy. Dark stems, so really pretty perennial. This is in the Vigoro container for $10.98 and it says that it likes part sun. And some beautiful annuals. I actually just picked this up on my last trip here, put it in a planter, and it's not blooming yet, but I can't wait until it does because it's stunning. This is a celosia called Dragon's Breath, and this is a larger container than I purchased. This one's $22.98, but they had some smaller ones for $12.98, which is what I picked up, and really pretty. I tucked mine in with some aster and a purple fountain grass, and I think it's going to look lovely once these start blooming. And lots of mums. So mums are listed as annual at most stores, but you can plant them in the garden after they're done blooming, and in most cases they will return for you the following year as perennial. It all depends how they're grown, because a lot of these are grown and forced into bloom in greenhouses for mass production and for sales at this time of the year in the fall. What I would recommend if you are going to be buying mums this year is to try to find one that hasn't cracked bloom yet, or something like this where you can see what color the blooms will be, but you still have lots of bloom buds. I would not recommend buying one that is all bloomed out like this, because it looks really pretty, but it's only going to last you 2 or 3 weeks. So given that it is only the first week of September, I would really go for something that is tightly budded so that you can get a little bit more time out of it. They also dry out really quickly. So in order for them to perform best, you're gonna have to water them pretty much daily, or you can take them out of this container and plant them into a larger planter with more soil, which will help retain moisture a bit better. They also have some decorative planters that are already made up with some fall plants. You have this one here that has some ornamental peppers. Now this mum is already all bloomed out, so you might not get too much time out of that one. This one here has an ornamental cabbage as well as some celosia. And these mums are a bit better. There's still some buds here. So this is great even just to grace some inspiration from containers if you want to create your own this fall. So they have this one here with peppers, celosia, and even some sunflowers. So some really pretty options. When it comes to the mums, they have 6.5-inch mum containers at 3 for $12. And then they also have some larger mum containers, number 10-inch planters for $17.98. And behind me, there's even some decorative 8-inch that we'll take a look at. Some 8-inch bushel mum containers that come in this decorative bushel looking pot for $10.98. And they have them in pink and yellow and in orange. And some of these drop and decorate containers, which you would just take and put in your planter for $16.98. They have some pansies, which pansies are a great cool season flower. We see them early on in early spring and now again in the fall. And they have some with decorative peppers. So really pretty options here. And look at this, they even have marigolds mixed into these planters, because marigolds are also a great fall annual. So if you are someone who likes to grow things from seed, grow some extra marigolds so that you can tuck them into your planters at this time of year in late summer, early fall, because they are a great fall plant as well. They also have some bushel millet, and these large planters here are $21.98. And this adds a really nice dark moody color to a backdrop of some of your mums or even some celosia or pansies. And if you're looking to update your hanging baskets for the remainder of the growing season, they always have these at the end of the summer. This is Plectranthus Mona Lavender, and it is a part shade plant that has a really beautiful kind of shiny green foliage and these really dainty purple blooms that are very similar to the blooms on, say, like a penstemon. So they're tubular shaped, so a little bit of food source for our pollinator friends as we head into fall. But these hanging baskets here are $19.98. You could also use something like pansies in hanging baskets, and that will look really lovely. And here's what I'm picking up today. I am going to get one more of this Sedum Matrona. Last time I was here, I picked up one, and I'm picking up a second one. And so I know that they tell you should plant in groups of 3 or 5, that they look more visually pleasing. And that is true, especially if you're going to space your perennials and dot them around the bed in sort of a drift. But in my case, I'm actually going to plant both of them together so it looks like I have a larger clump. So I think 2 will be just fine. And I really like the dark stems on this type of sedum. And then I found a singleton of this really beautiful evergreen. Look at the shape on that. I fell in love with it. It is a fern spray gold Hinoki cypress, so I'm adding yet another Hinoki to my garden. It likes full sun. It says outstanding color, evergreen, gets to be 6 to 12 feet in height and needs 4 to 8 foot spacing, hardy down to -30 degrees Fahrenheit. So I am really happy with that find in a 3-gallon container for $29.98. So sometimes in these large garden centers, you will find a little bit of a gem, and I found that this was my gem find for today. Well, that brings us to the end of the early September inventory here at the Home Depot. I hope that you've enjoyed checking out what my store has in stock, and I hope that you can find some of these varieties near you. Thank you so much for spending your time with me, and I will catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, please hit the thumbs up button, and please consider subscribing so you don't miss any of my future videos. And we'll see you soon.